Hello, everybody. I feel like I have to come up with a new greeting. It's always hello, everybody. I should come up with a catchphrase. All right, well, today we are going to be writing our first body paragraph of the 5 paragraph essay. Things are really starting. We're getting to the heart of our essay. What are body paragraphs? What makes a good body paragraph? How do I even get started? A body paragraph helps you prove your thesis is correct. You know, in the introduction, you establish your thesis or your main argument. It's in the body paragraphs that you really prove to the reader that what you've said, what conclusion you've made about what you're analyzing is true. I don't know if you've ever seen Judge Judy or you know who she is. She's a TV judge like Judge Mathis, but she's one of my heroes. I think she's just no nonsense. So if somebody comes on the show and they're trying to sue their friend because their friend didn't pay rent or they said that they were going to pay half for this vacation or I let my friend borrow my truck and then he destroyed it, whatever. She always says, "Where is the receipt?" Or like if a person didn't pay rent and the landlord wants them to pay rent, she says, "Well, where's the lease? Where's the contract? Where is the receipt for what you bought? Where is the email that says that? Show me a text message that says that you actually agreed with that." So I always think of Judge Judy when I'm writing because if I make a claim, I have to back it up or else my claim doesn't mean anything because my opinion's not enough. I'm not an expert on Shel Silverstein poetry, for example. So if I have a conclusion or um, a connection I've made, I have to prove that it is real by giving you those details. So, first things first, how do we get started? We look at that outline. Remember the outline for body paragraphs looks like this. We listed what poem we were going to do. We had a topic sentence, we had 2 pieces of supporting evidence, and for every supporting evidence or detail, we have an explanation of what that evidence means, and we connect it back to the thesis. Let's look at this in action. We can use the thesis that we were using, this example thesis that we've been using since the beginning of the unit. Cheerleading should be considered a sport because it requires athletic skills, physical training, and promotes team competition. If you remember in the lesson of the outline, I took athletic skills and I put it into the outline document. So here I've identified my topic sentence. I have 2 pieces of supporting evidence. One talks about all the movements that the cheerleaders have to do, and the other is a quote from a head cheer coach. Let's see how we can translate this into an actual piece of writing. What we have to do is make sure that we're not just writing a list. Your outline is a list, and if you just copy directly from your outline, it's going to sound very robotic. It's not going to sound like a person who's explaining things or talking. So you can start with writing down exactly what you have in your outline, but you're going to have to adjust it a little bit. The way I do that is I read out loud, and it helps me find those areas where we had some difficulty. So I look at my topic sentence. One reason that cheerleading should be considered a sport is because it requires athletic skill. I'm changing my topic sentence just a little bit. I'm saying cheerleading should be considered a sport because of the high level of athletic skill required. You see, I said it in like a little different way, but because that was my outline, I was just getting my ideas out there. But what I actually write is what I actually write. Next is the supporting evidence. Originally, I had complicated jumps and movements that push physical limits of the body. I want to, as a writer, I want to paint a picture in my reader's mind, and I want to add more information about complicated jumps. I want to be a little bit more specific. So I said, professional cheerleaders perform impressive stunts that include tumbling, back handsprings, and launching each other into the air while spinning and flipping. Those movements push the physical limits of the body. So I've taken what I had originally in the outline and I've just taken it further. I've added a lot more details and ways that the reader can kind of visualize what's going on. Now my explanation about how you have to be physically fit to be able to do this. To do well in this activity, a person has to be in shape and have top-notch endurance in order to make it look as effortless as they do. Now I'm going to add my connection. Your connection is very important. This is where I bring back why that detail is important to prove what my argument was. I say, because the same can be said of sports like diving or fencing, cheerleading can definitely be added to the list. I don't want you to think that this took me 5 seconds. This paragraph probably took me 10 minutes. It's not something that is very quick to do. Like I said, you can write everything out into a paragraph by just copy and pasting, but later you're going to have to go through and raise that level a little bit. Let's look at the end of my paragraph, my second piece of supporting evidence. I'm using a quote because you have to use a quote with the rubric. Remember, one piece of evidence has to be a direct quotation from the poem. So I have my supporting evidence, which is a quote from the head cheer coach. Instead of just saying what the head cheer coach said, I'm starting with in fact. In fact is a transition phrase. We're going to go over transition in our next video, but I don't want to just jump from this paragraph this section of the paragraph to the other. It just won't sound like it's together. So I put, in fact, the head cheer coach at ABC University, Tim Williams, said, many of those who participate in this sport spend as much, if not more, time working out than the team players they often cheer for. I'm going to explain to the reader what this detail means. This shows that even though it may seem like cheerleaders are secondary to the team they're cheering for, in actuality, they are like another team performing at the same time because of the preparation and dedication necessary. How does this connect to how cheerleading should be a sport? Athletic skill is a key ingredient in any sport. Cheerleading is no different. Again, guys, this did not take me 2 seconds. I had to really sit with this, think about it. I wrote out some sentences, I changed things up, I read it out loud, I thought, that doesn't work, let me put this in. So here we have, this is how I went from my outline to my paragraph, and you can see the corresponding pieces. If you want more time to look at this, this is an attachment. This is a presentation I attached to today's Google Classroom, so you can use that as well, or you can pause this video, take some time to read through it. But here you can see how it flows, how I've kind of adjusted things. All right, we're going to look at an example from your Shel Silverstein prompt. If you remember, I've been using a different prompt than you dealing with the poems. I'm talking about juxtaposition. What I'm finding, though, is a lot of you are writing about juxtaposition now, and that is not your prompt. So I've decided I'm going to actually give you a body paragraph from your prompt so you can see exactly what you should be doing. Do not steal my words, please. All right. So here is the outline I have for masks. I chose masks. I think the message of masks is we need to be true to ourselves because we'll be happier that way. I have 2 pieces of evidence. One, I'm talking about the blue skin that they're hiding behind with the mask. And the other, I'm giving you a direct quote from the end of the poem. All right, let's put this thing together so that it flows. I'm going to start off by saying, in his poem, Masks, I can't just start talking all of a sudden. They're not going to know that I am talking about masks unless I say so. In his poem, Masks, Shel Silverstein teaches us that we should be our true selves, because in the end, that is what will make us truly happy. Kind of going back and forth with using truly and true at the same time. This might be something I decide later when I'm doing my final draft or my edits. I can't decide if I like it or not. All right, my first piece of evidence. The 2 characters in the poem have blue skin, but they both hide it behind masks. Remember that you're a tour guide, so I'm not going to assume that the person who's reading my paper has read Masks, so I have to tell them a little bit about what's going on. So the 2 characters in the poem have blue skin, but they both hide it behind masks. Let me explain what that means. Their blue skin represents their true identity. For whatever reason, maybe shame or embarrassment, only their false identity is what is shown to the world by using enormous masks. How does that connect with how we need to be our true selves? The last stanza of the poem illustrates why approaching life like this will leave you unhappy. This sentence actually does 2 things. Number 1, it tells you that doing these things make you unhappy, which proves my claim. It also gives you a preview of what detail I'm going to give you next, which is the last stanza. The poem ends with, "They searched for blue their whole life through, then passed right by and never knew." Originally, my explanation was they'd miss an opportunity to make a connection with someone like them and to be happy. I've put, what a missed opportunity. They wanted nothing more than to find someone like them, someone who had their blueness in common. But because they both kept that important part of themselves hidden from the world, they couldn't recognize a possible soulmate walking right by. Again, this did not take me 2 seconds to write. I started with this, and then I just added more details and gave it a little bit more personality. Actually, this what a missed opportunity, that reminds me of Alessandro's writing. He does this a lot. Now my connection. Shel Silverstein sends us the message that when we are not true to ourselves, we cut ourselves off from connecting with others on a deeper level. This leaves us alone, incomplete, and unhappy. So you can see that I ended this paragraph telling you why all this that I just talked about proves that being our true selves makes us truly happy. I've taken all of this and I've put it into something that flows. In his poem Masks, Shel Silverstein teaches us that we should be our true selves, because in the end, that is what will make us truly happy. The two characters in the poem have blue skin, but they both hide it behind masks. Their blue skin represents their true identity. For whatever reason, maybe shame or embarrassment, only their false identity is what is shown to the world by using enormous masks. The last stanza of the poem illustrates why approaching life like this will leave you unhappy. The poem ends with, "They searched for blue their whole life through, then passed right by and never knew." What a missed opportunity. They wanted nothing more than to find someone like them, someone who had their blueness in common. But because they both kept that important part of themselves hidden from the world, they couldn't recognize a possible soulmate walking right by. Shel Silverstein sends us the message that when we are not true to ourselves, we cut ourselves off from connecting with others on a deeper level. This leaves us alone, incomplete, and unhappy. It's important that you read your paragraph out loud because before this presentation I did, and I could see the little spots that were kind of confusing or repetitive, or I didn't quite have enough there. So once you read it out loud, you can really get a sense of whether or not your paragraph is an actual paragraph or it sounds like a list of things that you've written down. Remember to avoid using I or saying, "in my opinion, I think that," "I'm going to tell you." Make sure you don't address the reader as you or your. You're just giving information. It's not about you, it's not about the reader. Avoid contractions that feel informal, like doesn't or she'll or wouldn't. You have to write it completely out. And don't use slang or write like you're texting. Make sure you're checking your spelling and your grammar. So you're going to write your first body paragraph today. Remember, this is a rough draft. It does not have to be perfect. We are not expecting perfection. We are just expecting you to write something. Then we can give you feedback and give you advice and take your writing to the next level. But we can't do that unless you actually write something. So don't worry, just get it out there, get it on paper. It's not going to be perfect. Guys, I've been doing this a long time. So I don't expect it to be like this 100% yet, but it will become like that little by little with our help and with your dedication to working. You can find it on Google Classroom. It's called Body Paragraph 1. Good luck. You're going to do great.